Monday of the 14th week in Ordinary Time.
A reading from the book of Genesis. Jacob departed from Beersheba and proceeded toward Haran. When he came upon a certain shrine, as the sun had already set, he stopped there for the night. Taking one of the stones at the shrine, he put it under his head and lay down to sleep at that spot. Then he had a dream. A stairway rested on the ground, with its top reaching to the heavens, and God's messengers were going up and down on it. And there was the Lord standing beside him and saying, I, the Lord, am the God of your forefather Abraham and the God of Isaac. The land on which you are lying I will give to you and your descendants. These shall be as plentiful as the dust of the earth. And through them you shall spread out east and west, north and south. In you and your descendants all the nations of the earth shall find blessing. Know that I am with you. I will protect you wherever you go and bring you back to this land. I will never leave you until I have done what I promised you. When Jacob awoke from his sleep, he exclaimed, Truly, the Lord is in this spot, although I did not know it. In solemn wonder, he cried out, How awesome is this shrine! This is nothing else but an abode of God, and that is the gateway to heaven. Early the next morning, Jacob took the stone that he had put under his head, set it up as a memorial stone, and poured oil on top of it. He called the site Bethel, whereas the former name of the town had been Luz. Jacob then made this vow, If God remains with me, to protect me on this journey I am making, and to give me enough bread to eat and clothing to wear, and I come back safe to my father's house, the Lord shall be my God. This stone that I have set up as a memorial stone shall be God's abode. The word of the Lord.
The responsorial psalm. The response is, In you, my God, I place my trust. You who dwell in the shelter of the Most High, who abide in the shadow of the Almighty, say to the Lord, My refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. In you, my God, I place my trust. For he will rescue you from the snare of the faller, from the destroying pestilence. With his pinions he will cover you, and under his wings you shall take refuge. In you, my God, I place my trust. Because he clings to me, I will deliver him. I will set him on high because he acknowledges my name. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in distress. In you, my God, I place my trust.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. While Jesus was speaking, an official came forward, knelt down before him, and said, My daughter has just died. But come, lay your hand on her, and she will live. Jesus rose and followed him, and so did his disciples. A woman suffering hemorrhages for 12 years came up behind him and touched the tassel on his cloak. She said to herself, If only I can touch his cloak, I shall be cured. Jesus turned around and saw her and said, Courage, daughter, your faith has saved you. And from that hour the woman was cured. When Jesus arrived at the official's house and saw the flute players and the crowd who were making a commotion, he said, Go away. The girl is not dead, but sleeping. And they ridiculed him. When the crowd was put out, he came and took her by the hand, and the little girl arose. And news of this spread throughout all that land. The Gospel of the Lord.
Monday of the 14th week in Ordinary Time. The first reading comes from Genesis 28, 10 to 22a. Jacob is fleeing from his brother Esau because he has stolen the birthright and stolen his father's blessing for his firstborn. He knows Esau, who's a savage of a man, would kill him. So he's going to Haran, On the way, he stops at a shrine, and he falls asleep with one of the stones from the shrine as a pillow, and he dreams during the night. Now, this was a very common practice, to go to a shrine and try to have a dream in which God would communicate to one through the dream. In this case, God does communicate with him. He calls himself the Lord, the God of his forefather Abraham, the God of Isaac. So Jacob is being invited into this special relationship that had been established first with Abraham and then renewed with Isaac. Jacob's descendants will be as plentiful as the dust on the earth, and they'll spread out east and west. So it's a tremendous blessing that Jacob's receiving, even as he's fleeing from danger. What is Jacob's response? Well, first of all, he consecrates this spot because he knows it's a holy site. In fact, he calls it Beth El, which means the house of God. And then he says, God, if you give me food and drink for my journey and clothing, then I'll be faithful to you. Notice how it's almost a do ut des. I will be faithful to you as long as you give me my food and drink and clothing. That he's not really showing a spontaneous faith, but rather bargaining with God. And that's typical of Jacob. He's not exactly the most heroic figure in the Bible. The Gospel is from Matthew 9:18 to 26. This is a shortened version of the two miracles that are found in chapter 5 of Mark. The first miracle, that Jesus heals the woman with a hemorrhage. She's been suffering from a hemorrhage, which probably refers to the menstrual flow. So she's been unclean for 12 years, never able to pray with her community, never even able to eat with her own family. She wants to be healed, so she touches Jesus' cloak. Now that is something she should not have done because she's impure, and by touching him, technically she's made him impure. But the exact opposite happens. By touching him, she is healed. And Jesus turns around and looks at her. Now in the Gospel of Mark, it's a little more ambiguous. Jesus looks around to see who touched him, and he doesn't seem to know. Here in Matthew, it's made more definite. And what does Jesus say to her? Your faith has saved you. Faith in the gospel often precedes miracles or follows miracles. And when faith precedes the miracle, instead of saying your faith has caused you to be healed, it says your faith has saved you. Because it's not simply a physical healing, but also a spiritual healing. The second miracle is the raising of the official's daughter. Here it doesn't mention the official's name. In Mark, it's Jairus. And even though she's dead, Jesus says she's sleeping, almost looking at things with the eyes of simplicity, the eyes of a child who is able to see the deeper reality. We heard that yesterday, that the deepest truths of God are revealed to the meek, the humble. He raises her from the dead. And we have to remember, this is not a resurrection. A resurrection means that we receive a new body that is a spiritual body, that will never suffer from the limitations of this body. This, like the raising of Lazarus, like the raising of the son of the widow of Nain, is a reanimation. She's brought back to life, but one day she would die again. Nevertheless, this shows that Jesus has authority over nature and even over death itself. And may God bless us.